No rain in 4 days. No pipe. No well. No hose running from the neighbor's yard. Just water, dripping steadily into a plastic trough at the base of a mesh screen propped up on bricks. Slow, clean drops forming out of nothing but the night air. This is not a magic trick. This is physics doing what physics has always done. You just have to give it the right surface. This video will show you why this method disappeared and how to bring it back step by step. For about $12 and one trip to the hardware store, you can build a working dew collector that pulls clean drinking water straight out of the atmosphere while you sleep. No electricity, no plumbing, no permits, and no one selling you anything. Let's start with why you've probably never heard of this. Commercial atmospheric water generators exist. Companies like Watergen out of Israel and Source Global have built machines that pull water from humid air. These units work, but the cheapest ones start around $2,000, and most cost far more. The global atmospheric water generation market was valued at roughly $1.3 billion in 2021, and Fortune Business Insights projects it will hit $7.8 billion by 2028, growing at about 28.7% per year. There is serious money flowing into this space. But here is what nobody in that market wants you to think too hard about. The basic principle behind every single one of those machines is the same thing that puts dew on your grass every morning. A surface gets cold enough, humid air touches it, and water condenses. A $3,000 unit uses motors, fans, and refrigeration coils to force that process. A $12 mesh frame lets nature do the work on its own schedule. The expensive version is faster. The cheap version is free to run forever. The science here is something you already understand, even if you've never used the word for it. The dew point is the temperature at which air can no longer hold all its moisture as invisible vapor. When air touches a surface at or below that temperature, water appears. You see this every time you pull a cold glass out of the fridge on a warm day. Droplets form on the outside within seconds. You see it on a spider web in the early morning, covered in tiny beads of water that collected overnight. That spider web is doing exactly what we're about to build, just at a much smaller scale. Engineers and indigenous communities figured this out a long time ago. Fog collectors have been used along the coast of Chile for decades. Morocco has installed fog nets in mountainous regions. Rural parts of Ethiopia have experimented with mesh-based water collection. The Incas built stone structures in the Andes specifically shaped to condense water from mountain fog. In the Canary Islands, fog nets have harvested water for generations. And here is one that most people don't know. Bronze Age wells discovered in the Negev desert are now theorized by archaeologists to have been dew collectors, not structures built to store water, but structures built to produce it. This is not new knowledge. It was simply set aside when indoor plumbing and municipal water made it feel unnecessary. The tap worked, so the old skill gathered dust. Now let's build one. The parts list is deliberately simple. You need a 6x6 foot shade cloth mesh, which runs about $5 at most hardware stores. You need 4 sections of 1-inch PVC pipe to make the frame, which costs about $2. You need zip ties. You need a plastic gutter section for the collection trough, which runs $3 to $4. And you need a few bricks or rocks to set the angle. Total cost lands between $10 and $14. If you already have zip ties and bricks sitting around, you're looking at about $8. No special tools required. Most hardware stores will cut the PVC to length for free if you ask. Assembly takes less than an afternoon. Cut or have the PVC cut into sections that form a rectangle roughly 4 feet tall by 3 feet wide. Connect the corners. Now stretch the mesh over that frame and zip tie it every 6 inches along every edge. This is the step most people get wrong, and it is the most important one. You want drum skin tension. The mesh should be tight enough to bounce a coin off of. If it sags, water pools in the low spots instead of running down. Pooling means slower runoff. Smaller droplets merging into heavy blobs that stick and reduce total collection. Tight mesh means every droplet rolls downhill the moment it forms. Once the mesh is secured, tilt the frame at an angle between 15 and 30 degrees. Never lay it flat. Gravity is your pump here. Every drop that condenses on the mesh needs to slide downhill into the gutter section, sitting directly under the lower edge. If you want to get a little fancier, attach a short tube to one end of the gutter to route water directly into a storage jug or bottle. But that part is optional. The gutter alone catches everything. Placement is where this goes from a neat project to a reliable water source. The frame must face directly into the prevailing wind. Not sideways, not at an angle. Straight into it. You want air flowing through the mesh, not around it. If you don't know your prevailing wind direction, check it over a couple of evenings. Watch which way smoke drifts, or hang a light ribbon from a pole. Even a few degrees off costs you collection volume. Elevation makes a difference too. Getting the frame even 1 foot off the ground puts it in contact with cooler, more humid air layers. Ground-level air tends to be slightly warmer and drier because of heat radiating off the soil. A foot or two of height changes the equation. One detail people overlook is morning sun. Position the collector where direct sunlight does not hit it first thing in the morning. You want accumulated dew sitting in that trough until you walk out and collect it. Early sun heats the mesh and the gutter, and evaporation starts pulling your water back into the air before you've had a chance to grab it. A spot on the west side of a building behind a tree line or anywhere shaded until mid-morning is ideal. The routine is dead simple. Set it up before sunset. Collect at dawn. That's it. Now let's talk about real numbers, because this is where honesty matters. On the first night of testing under average conditions, mid-50s Fahrenheit, average humidity, no fog, no rain, the yield was just over half a liter. That is not going to sustain a household, and I am not going to pretend it will under those conditions. But context changes everything. In humid climates, coastal areas, river valleys, or anywhere that sees regular morning fog, outputs of 1 to 2 liters or more per night from this size setup are commonly reported. Scaled up to a 10 by 10 foot mesh, the daily volume gets serious. According to the United Nations, about 2 billion people worldwide live in water-stressed areas as of 2022. A family of 4 needs roughly 2 liters of drinking water per person per day. In the right climate, a larger version of this system covers that entirely from air, with no bills, no infrastructure, and no permission from anyone. Simple atmospheric water generation setups can produce anywhere from 1 to 8 gallons per day depending on humidity and temperature. That's a wide range, and the low end matches dry inland conditions while the high end reflects coastal or tropical environments. Know your climate and you'll know what to expect. Here is where I want to challenge something most people assume. The common belief is that any water not coming from a sealed, treated municipal supply needs heavy processing before it's safe to drink. Atmospheric water actually bypasses most of the contamination sources that make surface water dangerous. It has never touched ground, soil, or pipes. There is no agricultural runoff in it, no sediment, no bacteria from animal waste seeping into a creek bed. The only real concerns are particulates that accumulate on the mesh over time and trace pollutants if you're setting this up in an urban area near heavy traffic or industrial activity. If you're out in a rural or semi-rural location, the water coming off that mesh is remarkably clean to begin with. But if you want complete peace of mind, and you should, build a gravity filter for about $3. Take a plastic bottle, cut it in half, invert the top half into the bottom half like a funnel. Layer it from the bottom up, a wad of cotton at the neck, then a layer of activated charcoal, available at any pet store or aquarium supply shop, then a layer of fine sand, then another cotton layer on top. Pour your collected water in at the top. It drips through each layer and comes out filtered at the neck. For absolute certainty, boil the filtered water or add 1 drop of plain, unscented household bleach per liter and wait 30 minutes. That produces water as clean as treated tap water, in many locations probably cleaner. There's a number that puts all of this into perspective. At any given moment, roughly 37 million billion gallons of fresh water are suspended in the atmosphere as vapor. That is more than all the rivers on Earth combined. It's floating above us right now. Almost nobody is collecting it. The commercial market is racing toward nearly $8 billion in value by 2028, trying to do with compressors and electricity what a mesh screen and the night air already do for free. In 2017, the U.S. Army tested atmospheric water generation technologies in arid environments because troops in the field need water where there is no infrastructure to deliver it. By 2023, advances in nanotechnology had started improving moisture extraction efficiency even further. These are sophisticated, expensive systems designed for extreme conditions. What you're building in your backyard for $12 is the stripped-down ancestor of all of it. The principle is identical. The execution is just simpler. Let me leave you with this. The Incas did not need a power grid to collect water from fog. The communities in the Canary Islands did not need a government grant. The people who may have built dew-collecting structures in the Negev desert during the Bronze Age did not need a YouTube tutorial. They watched how the world worked, and they built surfaces that cooperated with it. $12 in one afternoon puts that same knowledge back in your hands. Whether you're building this for emergency preparedness, because you already live off-grid, or because you're just someone who likes building things that actually do something and you found this video at 2 in the morning out of pure curiosity, it works either way. Set it up before sunset tonight. Walk out at dawn. Look in the trough. The water is already there, waiting for someone to finally come collect it.